We want to welcome our viewers to another journey of the art settlers of New York. I am Rafaela Ronnie Billini, your host and co-founder and executive producer, and we are delighted to have our featured artist, Moses Ros, a native New Yorker, first generation of Dominican ancestry. He identifies as a Dominican American sculptor, painter, and printmaker that lives and works here in New York City in the Bronx. He is an architect and proud alumni of Pratt Institute. He has created large-scale public art commissions for the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, the Bronx Council for the Arts, and the New York City Housing Authority, plus stained glass windows for the Metropolitan Transit Authority. He has had solo exhibitions at the Yeshiva University Museum in New York, the Patterson Museum in New Jersey, the Bronx Museum, and El Instituto de Cultura y Arte in Santiago, Dominican Republic. His artwork is held in corporate and public collections, including the Smithsonian Museum of American Art and El Museo del Barrio. He is a member of various artist collectives, Dominican York Project Gráfica, known as DYPG, and Arte Latam, which stands for Art of Latin America. Moses studied printmaking at Bronx Printmakers and has worked in some major printmaking workshops in New York City, such as the renowned the Robert Blackburn Printmaking Workshop, Lower East Side Print Shop, and the Manhattan Graphic Center. He invented the reprolage, a combination of recycled materials and unique printed collages that blend the New York experience and his own memories of childhood. This art style celebrates New York's forward-looking spirit of sustainability and commitment to the reuse of valuable resources into a spirit of iconic images. His recent exhibit at Manhattan Neighborhood Network's El Barrio Firehouse, Paradise Phoenix Environmental Art, was well received by the New York City art community. We will be discussing Moses Ros's life in this highly competitive art scene in New York City. Welcome, Moses Ros, to the Art Settlers of New York.
Thank you, Ronnie.
So, I want to start by knowing about your life, little kid growing up as a Dominican in New York City. How was that?
When I was little, my father, he left here in New York to go fight in the Dominican Republic to overthrow the dictatorship in the Dominican Republic.
Of Trujillo.
Yes, and so he was killed in that venture that he did, and then so my mother never remarried, and she raised my brother and myself, my older brother Salvador, and she worked in a factory making children's clothes for 30 years. So she's my hero. And my father's my hero too.
Absolutely, and a Dominican
right.
hero.
Exactly. So, and then that's how I was able to, be here in New York because they had left the Dominican Republic before they got married.
When did they leave?
In the 50s.
In the 50s.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And then so.
And they settled where? In what area?
On the Upper West Side.
Okay.
And which was not what it is today. It's totally different atmosphere.
What streets?
That was Amsterdam Avenue and 89th Street.
Okay.
So, so growing up, there was, it was a rough neighborhood. Then there was gangs, there was drugs, there was all kinds of things. I would get into trouble. But my first artistic thing that I started doing was I was doing graffiti on the subways.
Okay.
So that's
you had a tag name?
Yeah, I was Sal 161. And
Sal, I remember Sal 161.
Yeah. Oh, you do? Oh, okay.
Okay.
So, so, yeah. So anyway, that was, way to, express myself and and I don't know, express my
Did
identity.
did your mother consider that vandalism?
Yes, very much so.
Did she know? So how did she react to your artistic
Well, she was
endeavors?
happy that you would, because I would, when I was younger, I would, draw and, from comic books and things like that. And so, I had that talent of being able to draw. So she was happy about that, but she was not happy about me going on the subways and spray
So
painting.
how did you purchase your spray, the cans of paint?
Well,
and
let's just
spray
say they
can?
were appropriated for the benefit of the state.
Ah, I see. And that involved what?
Appropriation.
Okay. So you were a little kid going into a store and you were...
doing my stuff, and then, and also other friends of mine would trade paint and things like that. So.
Okay, all right. And so why did you use the name Sal after your brother?
Yeah, after
or in
my
honor
brother.
of your
Yeah,
brother?
after my brother.
So he would get in trouble, not you.
Exactly.
Very smart. So when you were doing this and during grammar school, what happened in high school? What high school did you go to?
I went to Rice High School because I had gone to on 90th Street was St. Gregory the Great.
Okay.
And then I went to Rice, which was in Harlem.
Is that a Catholic high school as well?
Yeah, it was the Christian Brothers were the
Okay.
ones who did that. But I just want to step back for a moment on the graffiti thing. There was an organization called the Nation of Graffiti Artists. It was like in the neighborhood, it was in a storefront where it was open to the neighborhood kids, and we could go there and then do graffiti on canvas.
Okay.
So,
all right.
So that was an important organization that came up at that time.
So your mother must have been pleased with that.
Well,
I mean that you were doing it in more formally and on canvas.
Right. Exactly.
And then it was beginning to get recognized as an art form.
Yeah, and I actually sold pieces from there, so it was kind of a good experience.
So that was probably, and we'll talk about that momentarily, a good base for then the future art commissions that you were able to obtain, with large scale, because you already had that somewhat of an experience.
Right.
So,
but before you go on, let me just finish about the Rice High School. So, in Rice, I was on the swim team, I was on the chess team, and I was there. But the thing is, artistically, there was nothing for me there. So eventually, my mother sent me to the DR because,
to get you out of trouble.
To get me out of trouble. So, but when I was down there, I had a paint set, and I painted some paintings, and I submitted them to the national competition that was hosted by the Royal Bank of Canada in the capital. I was living in Santiago, and I won, first prize in the painting. So that was,
What did you paint?
It was sort of like a surrealist earth with all this sort of chaotic things going on. I guess a reflection of my life at the time.
And do you still have that piece? Or
yeah, I still have it, yes.
Oh, that would be an interesting piece to see sometime in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then when I came back, I went to, because I was only there for not that long. I was there for like 6 months or something. Or, so
then you went to school there?
Yeah, I went to school there for a time. And then when I came back, I went to Brandeis High School, which was on 84th Street and between Amsterdam and Columbus. And then there, I was really able to do artistically do a lot. I got on the yearbook staff, and I was also doing drawings, for the yearbook, photography.
And helping design the layout.
Exactly, and doing the layout and poetry. I mean, I did everything in that. And the cover, I did the cover of the yearbook and everything. And also they had internships with the Museum of Natural History, where I did reproductions of dinosaur bones and of the Aztec calendar that they would sell to other museums. So that was a rewarding experience.
And it's interesting that you were previously going to a private high school, and they offered none of the
creative stuff.
Yes.
It was all academics. Yeah.
Right. So that's where you then applied when you decided, what university you were going to go to.
Right. When I was at Brandeis.
Okay.
Yeah.
And speak to us about how your process was in terms of putting together your portfolio to be accepted at Pratt.
Well, just like drawings I had done, and some paintings, and some, I guess, abstract work as well. So
And
like a variety of things.
did you have a counselor at your high school that encouraged you or recommended that?
Well, yeah, there was Mr. Flood, who was, who was.
You always remember someone, right?
Well, there was several people. There was
Yes.
Mrs. November, and there was some memorable
Who
teachers
saw that you had
there. Right,
a talent.
who were good, yeah, and they were encouraging teachers. Yeah.
So, as a son of a single mother, a widow,
Yeah.
how was that? Were you able to get a scholarship, or what happened?
Yeah, I got a partial scholarship to Pratt.
Okay.
Yes.
So you were commuting between the Upper West Side and
And
downtown
Brooklyn, yes.
And how was that? How were you were you well received at Pratt? Being
Yeah.
a Dominican,
Yeah. It was pretty.
American.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yes, I would say.
So,
And I learned a lot, and some interesting teachers there as well. There was one Katavalos that was very creative. Guy who really sort of opened your eyes to different possibilities of being creative. So it was a good experience.
Were you the only Dominican art student? Student at Pratt when you were going to in your class, or there weren't that many Dominicans in the school?
No, there was some Puerto Ricans that were in
Yes.
the school. There was actually, I went to school with Sergio Ocasio, who's he's the father of Ocasio, who's now a congresswoman. So.
Oh, you did.
Yes.
Oh, and he was an architect because
He was
you
an
decided.
yeah, he was an architect in the Bronx.
You decided, yeah, when you decided to go to, when you decided you wanted to be an architect.
Right. So yeah.
So your mother must have been pleased with that.
Yeah, she was happy with that.
So you went from graffiti to being a respectable architect.
Well, yeah, exactly.
You don't consider yourself
No. It's
respectable.
respectable. It is.
I mean,
yes,
in her eyes.
It's a big
In her eyes.
a big difference.
Yes, yes.
So it was very good. No, it was good training, because you get to look at a building, organizing the space, the building systems. The HVAC, mechanical, heating and cooling, the structure, the all kinds of things that you have to do that goes into a building that people really don't know what architects do.
Right.
But they,
So you learned everything at. So not only because when people think of architects, they think of someone who can sketch.
Right.
Right.
You have to know how
and
to
then
draw.
put a model together.
Right. Exactly.
You know how to do that.
Yeah. Of course. Yes.
But then you also learned, what engineers also learn. So
Right,
architecture,
exactly.
being an architect involves much more than what we think.
Yes.
Where we always
exactly.
see in architects in a movie, and they have their
Right.
little plan on the table, and I need $20 million to build this. Can I have it? Right.
Right.
Have you ever had that? Did you have that experience of actually designing and presenting your
absolutely.
design?
Early on, yes,
Early
I
on?
did that.
Talk to us about
And
that.
I was, there was the Pratt Center that they did work in the different communities. So we would go and do things out in like East New York or in the South Bronx to, help the communities, renovate buildings, survey buildings, and present, projects for, the
Well, you were
community.
at Pratt.
Well, I was at Pratt, yes.
And then after graduation, where
I-
was your first place of
Yeah,
employment?
I worked at Gruz and Sampton, and I started at the bottom. I started in the mailroom.
As an architect?
Well, no, as a student.
As
I
a
went. I
student.
went.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a job there in the mailroom, and then when I graduated, they hired me. So then I was doing like the schools for. Before it was the School Construction Authority, the Board of Ed was doing schools. So we did prototype schools, which is
Okay.
sort of like a kit of parts, like classroom module, the administration module, the gym and cafeteria module. With then the links would be like the stairways, and then you could fit it to different sites depending if it was a long site or if it was a square site.
Do you have anything that, like, for example, a New Yorker can say,
Oh, yeah.
oh, you can visit this school that has my stamp?
Yeah. Well, there's the one, the big one is on Broadway and 204th Street. I don't know if it's what the PS is right now, but then there's one that's right off.
Did you help
FDR.
design it, or?
Yeah, I helped design it. Yeah, I was on the design team.
In the heart of
Dominican. Right in the heart of
right?
Dominican. Yes, and that was in several of them, and then in 160th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. So there was, and then the idea was that then we could, fit this to any site, in the city. So
you must be proud of that.
Yeah, and that's what I've done in my architectural career, is do like some sort of civic structures, because then I did like libraries, did the library for Queens College that has a clock tower. We did a big conference center that was at Kingsborough College that had a light tower. All kinds of buildings like that, universities and things like that.
And in La Familia, they never asked you to help me redesign my space?
Well, I give them advice on what to do, but I wasn't gonna, get into it, because when you're doing little houses, it gets very, intense with people. So
yeah, it's best to just
focus,
exactly, not with family. So talk to me about your work as a community activist, and I would think that then, how did you gradually get into printmaking? Because you worked with different workshops.
I was, we had a show back in '92. It was called 500 Yolas, and there was a group of Dominicans that exhibited at Hostos in the old gallery. And there was, I think the one who organized it was Heman Perez, and Teresa Garcia was in that group as well, and a couple other people. And then Betty Biasini, who she had Bronx printmakers up in Longwood. Okay. So she had a group of artists that she was working with, so she invited me, because I had shown, I was part of the AIM program.
What is that?
That's Artists in the Marketplace. That was at the Bronx Museum. So I was selected for that. So then she said, hey, do you want to come up and do some prints, because I think that you would like it. So I did my first print with Bronx printmakers. So, and then that's kind of got me started with printmaking.
And what was like the first,
what was
the technique that you used?
Oh, the first technique was
as a
sort
printmaker.
It was a zinc plate, and it was a dry point.
And who taught you how to do that, or someone there was a mentor to you?
Well, yeah, Betty was the one who was sort of
guiding everybody.
All the artists there. Yeah.
So what happened with the Dominican York Grafica?
Well, that came much later. There was at one point.
And you become like the father of that, no?
Well,
so taking care of everyone.
Well, I've done a lot of that, but it's not just me. There's those 12 artists that founded it. But before that, I had been in a group called Taller Dominicano, which is uptown, and we would exhibit in different places. And then there was another group called Generación Cuatro, which was like these 4 Dominican artists. So these are all Dominican groups. And then I was invited to participate with Dominican York Proyecto Gráfica. And I joined them, and then we made portfolios, which, several of them, and, so yeah.
And what this new group that you're involved with, the
Arte Latam?
Right.
That
stands for it's
Arte of Latin America.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a collective. There's there was 5, now there's 6 artists, and it's artists from different Latin American countries. So you have somebody from Ecuador, Mexico, Venezuela, Cuba, and Dominican Republic. Okay. And then so it's sort of like a collective of these different countries doing a common, goal of exhibiting together. And then I brought to them the idea of making a series of prints about migration. And that's what is now at the Border Gallery, which is in Bushwick, Brooklyn.
Oh, so you have an exhibit, and
Yeah.
we'll quickly speak about that. I want to ask you about your family life right now. Your
Okay.
wife has been very
Yeah,
supportive.
Ellen.
Ellen,
Yes.
and you have two children.
Yeah, two
adult
children.
children.
Adam is the oldest, and Gabrielle, my daughter, is the youngest. Yes.
All right, and they are not in the art world.
No, my son is in computer science, and my daughter is a teacher
Okay.
for children with special needs. Actually, here in Harlem.
All right. And have you thought about perhaps doing a workshop with those children, or
Yeah, she had talked to me about it, but they're, a little, hesitant over there about it because of, the special needs children. So.
Right. Okay.
But I have done tons of workshops in
Right.
printmaking and other things.
So, talk to us. What's next? I mean, you have an exhibit right now at.
Well, I have the Bushwick exhibit is up. I had something which was the Latinx Art Fair, which was over at, I guess what is it, SMV Gallery near Times Square. That just happened. But next is, actually from there, I was invited to do a couple of solo shows. So for next year, so I'm going to work on that. I may be going to Ecuador to a cultural center to have an exhibition there with this group, with Dr. Latam, and to also give a talk as well about printmaking.
Now, we've got this image here. Let's talk about this particular image that you had at Manhattan Neighborhood Network.
Yes.
Paradise Phoenix, environmental art. So you used a lot of recycling in this particular.
Right. This is an installation using sort of found material that I print on to create the repollage, as I call it. And then what happens?
You have to have a patent for that, right?
There you go. So it's about right now the environment, climate change that's going on is a very serious threat to humanity, and this is just one way or one small way to sort of bring consciousness about the products that we use. So like for instance, like cereals and cookies and all that stuff come in boxes, but they don't really need to do that. That's just for advertising. That's why in this piece, he's in the figures in the TV set. So he's sort of doing that, consumerism. Like selling.
Right. We're all
to consume, exactly.
Right.
So, but then it's like a disposable.
You've got to dispose it.
Yeah, society. And then where it goes to landfills, and the trees are cut down, etc. down the line. So this is a way of saying, well, let's think about this a little bit. And this can be something beautiful, something creative that can be used, and not just discarded, right away, but give it a second life, so that we can try to preserve and our environment. So that idea, that seed can grow into other areas.
Now, you said that being part of this group of different Latin American artists.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the term Latinx? Do you like that term, or do you think that that's a term of youth, of the artists who are?
Well, yeah, it's more like the younger generation, our generation.
Do you identify as Latinx?
I really don't know exactly what Latinx is. I mean, I'll be honest, it's. I know what it is, but it's. It's just. I guess it's like a rebranding of Latino, Latina. That's the way I look at it, and I guess it brings attention to Latinos, right, or Latinas. This Latinx. So in that way, it's
supposed to be
positive.
gender neutral. Term,
gender neutral term.
But many of different generations are still feeling uncomfortable
Right.
with the term itself?
Well, because some people find it confusing, that next, but it brings attention to the Latin community, so in that way it's positive.
That's a good way of looking at it. What do you say to the aspiring young artists who are trying to make it in New York City right now, who may be listening or to this program?
All right. Well, I guess one thing is you have to be persistent. You have to be creative. So the one thing is to create great, beautiful art, that has a message and that people are attracted to, and to work, and then do more work, and then do more work.
That's what it's all about. And can you just repeat your email if anyone wants to contact you?
Yeah, it's MOSES_ROS@yahoo.com.
MOSES_ROS@yahoo.com. Thank you very much, Moses, for being here with us tonight. And we want our studio audience and our viewing audience at home to look you up and look at your work. And certainly the Dominican Republic and the Dominican Americans living in New York City must be proud. And I suspect that you were the first Dominican American who graduated from Pratt Institute. And I'm going to look that up. And I think you are.
All right.
Okay? Well, thank you again, Moses. And my best and blessings, bendiciones para ti, tu familia. Thank you. Thank you.
This was special.
Yeah.